Welcome to the Burn Your Mortgage Podcast, a Canadian real estate podcast that shows you how to pay off your mortgage sooner and live well while doing it. Now, here's your host, Sean Cooper.
Welcome to the Burn Your Mortgage Podcast. I'm Sean Cooper, and it's great to be back for another episode. On today's show, I'll be talking to Tomas Rhenti. Tomas is the founder and CEO of Rhenti. Being both a landlord and a renter, Tomas has a unique perspective of the residential rental industry that enables the Rhenti team to build digital leasing tools for landlords in a way that shifts renters to the forefront of the experience. Rhenti is the busy landlord's trusted leasing platform, connecting them with more renters faster. Rhenti helps busy landlords to protect their time and free themselves from menial and tedious tasks by reducing the overall time to lease. In my interview with Tomas, we discuss what is Rhenti and how does it work, what kind of property owners would get the most out of Rhenti, something we wish property owners and landlords understood more about the leasing process, and what we are seeing in the rental market right now. And as a loyal listener of the Burn Your Mortgage podcast, Rhenti is happy to offer listeners $60 off their first listing for new clients only. To get this exclusive offer, email me at Sean, that's SEAN, at burnyourmortgage.ca. Without further ado, here's my interview with Tomas Rhenti. Hi, Tomas. How are you doing today?
Hey, Sean. I'm great.
Super excited to discuss a great platform for landlords as well as renters because, yes, certainly being a landlord, there are tasks that you have to take care of and they may not be the most fun things. And finding a high quality tenant is very important as well. So interested to hear how your platform helps with all that there.
Yeah, happy to tell you more about Rhenti. So we're a top of funnel system for long-term residential rentals. So that means marketing and leasing automation. We really help with process efficiency, user experience, and of course, data and insights, which are always important, whether you're a big or small landlord. At a granular level, the way that landlords and property managers use our platform is we integrate with their property management system and ingest all their properties into our system, or they can manually create properties in our system. And then we help them with all the marketing. We generate ads across all the top listing sites, social media, Google, you name it. And then we help you generate as many renter eyeballs or renter prospects as possible. And then we help you nurture all those renter prospects all the way through lease sign, deposit handled, and everything in between. So booking viewings, credit checks, references, etc. We help you with everything from start to finish in the top of funnel.
Wow, that sounds very helpful. And maybe you could just explain how somebody would normally do that and how much time you can save with Rhenti and how the experience is just overall that much easier.
Yeah, so obviously there's differences. There's a lot of inconsistency in the market and in the ways that people do it. Lots of different processes, lots of different systems. If you're a mom and pop landlord, you may just be using email, maybe a spreadsheet. If you have, 300 doors, 500 doors or more, if you're in the thousands of doors, you probably have a variety of systems in place. And historically, landlords have had to either do things manually or cobble together like a Frankenstein type solution where the experience is not very great. There's no data continuity from one system to the other. A lot of opacity for both sides of the equation, whether you're a renter, whether you're like someone doing the leasing or marketing work. And what we do is we bring it all under one roof. We automate a lot of the process. We've baked ChatGPT into the system, so it helps you answer prospect inquiries, helps you get viewings booked, applications kind of submitted. So we really do take a process where traditionally it may have taken you, call it 15 hours of human input time to market and lease one residential rental. With our system, we bring that down under an hour per residential rental unit in terms of that human input that's required because of all the smart automation and experience improvements we've done to the system. And also kind of bringing all of that under one roof really helps with the process.
Sounds pretty amazing. Well, you definitely convinced me there. So great. Well, following up on that, Tomas, can you tell me what kind of property owners would get the most out of Rhenti?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sean. Thanks. We started life in 2019 and we designed the platform exclusively for mom and pop landlords or small business landlords. So anyone who has between one and call it 50 doors. Since then, and so that experience has been built out for that segment. Since then, we've built out many kind of more complex enterprise type features, but it really is a great, simple, intuitive, easy to use experience for someone that has one basement unit all the way through, someone that may have a low rise building with 10 to 20 units is great for that. And it really does shine when you have a very limited team, or if you're just on your own, if you're managing on your own and maybe you have a full-time job on the side, or you have a full-time job and you're doing this on the landlording on the side. The system really helps you make the most of your time because it's going to save you a ton of time with the admin work. It's going to save you time when it comes to doing your reference checks, your credit checks, collecting documentation, booking viewings, even answering questions from prospect renters, because you are going to get invariably lots of questions from renters that are maybe just kicking the tires, some are serious. The system really helps you weed out who's legitimately interested in your property, and then of those, who's going to be a really good fit for your residential rental.
Well, that's great because my experience with a landlord is that you have a lot of unserious people. And yes, if you could just use certain systems and processes just to, like you said, weed out the unserious people, that could really save you a lot of time because there's just a lot of back and forth. And yes, if there's some sort of Rhenti can just help people save time. There's only so many hours in the day. That sounds like a very helpful in that way as well as many other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you like one example of it. So let's say you have a well-priced rental in the annex of Toronto. You're probably going to get 50 prospect inquiries per day. There's a lot of demand in the area. And if you have a full-time job, how can you engage with those inquiries in real time? It's very difficult or impossible. And if you don't engage with prospects, within 30 minutes of their inquiry, you may lose them because some other landlord is going to respond to them. So it's really important to have that real-time engagement. And our system lets you do that in a hands-off approach. You flip a button that says, enable the ChatGPT powered leasing assistant. And that leasing assistant is going to be your first line of defense. They're going to answer questions day and night in a very considerate human way. And they're going to nudge renters and ideally help you filter out folks that are not interested from the folks that are indeed interested. They're going to kind of nudge them automatically towards booking a viewing with you and then going through the screening process as well. So it really does give you superpowers as a mom and pop landlord.
That sounds amazing. And also my experience as a landlord, I just find that a lot of the prospective tenants don't bother to read the listing that carefully and they miss important things in the listing. They just quickly look at the photos and scan it. I'm just curious, does Rhenti help with that at all? Because yeah, you have a lot of unqualified people reaching out to you and they don't even take the time to read the listing properly. Is that something that it helps as well with?
Yeah, that's a very common problem where the data is provided by the landlord and listing. Renters are applying or they're kind of nudging lots and lots of landlords via a variety of different listing sites. What our system helps you do is it consolidates all those inquiries in one place. So all of your messages, regardless of what kind of ILS or social site kind of was the originator of that prospect, it consolidates it all into one CRM chat kind of hub. And then our system can answer questions based on the data in your listing. So if you say that you do have one covered parking spot and one uncovered parking spot, our system, our leasing assistant, will be able to answer that based on what you provide as input. So it cuts out all of those types of questions of prospect renters not necessarily reading your complete listing details. So that one is completely eliminated by our platform.
No, that sounds great. And just want to understand, is your platform an alternative way to list your property, or does it work in conjunction with the existing ways to list your property out there, like the Facebook marketplaces, Kijijis, and Craigslist of the world?
Yeah, so that's one of the really powerful things about our platform. It becomes your replacement for listing on those sites. And so we have business relationships with the social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. We also have one with Google, and then all of the top listing sites, apartments.com, Kijiji, Viewit, REW, etc., Zillow. We have direct connections with all of those sites. And so when you create a listing in Rhenti, we automatically push ads to all of those locations. So you don't have to go one by one and manually create ads. And then even more importantly, we connect all those different ads back to that one account to kind of rule them all. So if you update your ad in Rhenti, it'll automatically update your ad across all the different sites at once. And again, lead inquiries all come in through one place. So you don't have to go one by one. It saves you a ton of time creating listings, creating a variety of accounts, and then managing the kind of notification flows from different places. We bring it all under one roof.
Well, sounds great. Yes, I have rented places before, and it can be a lot of work just to monitor all the messages from the various websites there. So sounds pretty great to me. So yes, switching gears here, what is something you wish property owners and landlords understood more about the leasing process? I'm sure there's a lot, but maybe you can boil it down to one or two things.
Yeah, the leasing process is not trivial, and it's a huge amount of work. To build a great community, even if it's a community of just like one rental unit or a handful of rental units, landlords, property managers, they need to provide a really great experience for renters that has trust, transparency, and ease of use built into it. Via email, doing that manually with an Excel sheet it's just not possible. You really need good systems and processes in place to make this work. So the humans kind of behind that process, behind the leasing and the renting activities, they can be released to be a human and to be like a really kind of like considerate with renters and provide those things that they need to basically make the best match, right? You want the best fit renter for your rental, and having the right processes and systems in place help you do that.
Wow, sounds great. And is there a second thing that you wanted to mention in terms of understanding the leasing process there?
Yeah, I think part of that, maybe some additional kind of color on that answer, is that as a landlord, you of course want to get to know your prospect renters and the folks that are applying really well. And you want to make it easy to kind of tease out that information from renters. They're not going to want to just give you everything all at the beginning because that's a bit jarring and they could raise some flags, but you want to kind of do it at the right moments in the journey. And so one of the things that's important is as that renter shows more interest in your rental unit, it gives you kind of the ability, the freedom to then ask additional questions that help you assess if it's going to be the right fit. And both ways, like that renter wants to know if you're going to be the right fit for them as well. And so doing that in a staged, considerate manner, I think is really important to kind of build that trust in the process. And of course, that's something that we help you do automatically. You don't even have to think about it because we've kind of done so many of these leases and we've helped so many landlords that we know when it is the right time to ask the right question from a prospect and then help you kind of build that person's or that prospect's profile.
Sounds pretty good to me. So yes, if you have been hesitating to be a landlord just because of you're worried about some of these steps, Rhenti sounds like a great tool that can help make the process easier for you so that you finally take the jump and buy that investment property there. So great. And we spoke about this question offline here. And yes, it's an interesting question because a lot of landlords may not think of it, but can you talk about what is the renter experience like on Rhenti and why is that important for the landlord as well?
That is a good question, Sean. And initially may not seem like it's super relevant to landlords, but it actually is. If you want to be a landlord that attracts great tenants and you want to build, of course, like a great community, even if it's a small community, then it's really important to give renters a great experience in the renting process. You need to remove redundant work from their plate, remove opacity. And I like to liken the process to like the one-click checkout. Give that renter that like wow type experience so that they've had with like, let's say some sort of e-commerce site where it's at that one click, you purchase that thing you wanted and it kind of arrives in your home and you have that wow moment. We want to give them that kind of wow moment in the kind of the renting process because it doesn't really exist historically. It hasn't existed historically. That's what our system tries to strive for, but we think that doing that has been overlooked in the past. Many legacy kind of approaches to renting don't really have the renter in mind. They really do focus on the landlord, but we think that if you can give the renter a really good experience, you increase your chances of finding that renter that's going to be a really good fit for you. So it shouldn't be overlooked, and we like to really focus on that renter experience throughout our platform.
No, you bring up a really great point, Tomas, because, for example, you're working with a mom and pop landlord who doesn't have all this technology assisting them. They make you fill in all these paper forms and you're providing a ton of information. But with Rhenti, if the process is really smooth, like another landlord's asking me for all this information and it's really clunky process, I'd be more inclined to rent from some like a landlord where the process is a lot easier because it can be frustrating when you have to provide all this information, and it seems like you pretty much have to provide your whole life story. So yeah, if that process can be a lot more smoother, I think that increases your chance of getting a high quality tenant as a landlord.
Yeah, and to go with that, one other thing that kind of helps that narrative is that a renter that has created a profile in Renti, what we've noticed over the years is that they start to use that profile as like almost like a social media profile for renting, because it can be reused to apply to multiple properties in our network. And so think of it more as like a renting passport. And if they can use that passport to apply to a unit really easily, that's a huge advantage that you'll have over other landlords.
And just from its trust standpoint, I would imagine there's feedback that people can leave for landlords as well as renters. Just seeing that feedback, genuine feedback on the platform, I think would help a lot, because like the old cliche is that when you're asking for a reference from a tenant, their last landlord may not like them, so they'll give them a good reference just to get rid of them. But if there's a genuine way to actually see
Mhm.
the feedback on people, I think that would be very helpful as well.
Yeah, and we actually ask for that feedback very early in the process. And so, as a prospect renter that has just done a viewing, for example, through our system, they say they booked the viewing through Renti, the landlord's accepted it, the system sends out calendar invites, reminders. The day after a viewing, we send a request for feedback from that renter and we share that with the landlord. So they can get feedback in real time, to improve whatever they're doing in that viewing process. Because it very much is a sales pitch. When a renter's coming to see your place as a landlord, you're pitching them on the neighborhood, you're pitching them on the property, the neighbors. And if you're doing something wrong, the feedback that we have in our system will tell you very early on how to perhaps adjust or iterate to give you better chances with the next viewing and thereafter. So yeah, super important.
Well, you sold me on Renti. Great. That sounds like very helpful in terms of all the tools that you're offering there. And yeah, just switching gears here, just before I let you go, just wanted to ask you, what are you seeing in the rental market in major cities across Canada? Yeah, pretty much all across Canada here. We've focused a bit on the GTA, but if you could comment what's going on in the rest of the country from landlord as well as experience, that would be great just to get some insight from you.
Yeah, so we operate across Canada, and we saw a lot of demand from renters first half of the year, also going through the summer. Lots of leases happening nationally. And over the past 6 to 8 weeks, we've seen a big slowdown in demand from renters, not just reduced leases, but also like reduced inquiries. So folks shopping have really slowed down. And my best guess is that this is related to two things. One is the consistent rise in rent prices, which has been like unrelentless over the past couple of years, and coupled with the impact of inflation on like general cost of living. So the cost of living is going up, rents are going up. This is, I think, the result of that. Budgets are being stretched, and there may not be a lot of room to kind of continue that price growth for rent prices. So I think that we're probably going to see rent prices, like the growth is going to start to level out, or perhaps incentives are going to start to hit the market, like temporary incentives to help fill vacancies. That's what we're seeing right now.
And what advice would you give to a landlord right now if they're renting their property and they're kind of caught in that bit of a lull right now? What would you say to them?
I'd say that, of course, they have to weigh the cost of reducing their rent price versus months of lost rent if they can't fill a vacancy. So it is a bit of a balance. One interesting tool that we saw being used very effectively over the past couple of years is the temporary incentives. So 1 or 2 months off if you sign before this date kind of thing. And so it gives you, sure, you may have a bit of reduced rent for the first year, but thereafter you kind of get that rate that you wanted, and it helps you minimize any months of lost rent. So those incentives are, I think, super useful tools. The other could be just reducing your list price and really looking for a good fit renter as opposed to trying to maximize the rent price you can get right now. Having a really great tenant far outweighs getting an extra $100 a month, in my opinion.
I agree completely. So thanks so much for joining me today on the podcast, Tomas. I'll certainly be checking out Renti myself, and I hope everyone will as well. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you and getting your insight into the rental market and better understanding how Renti is a great tool for landlords. So thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Great to chat with you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Burn Your Mortgage podcast. Besides being a podcast host, I'm also an independent mortgage broker. If you or anyone you know, family, friends, coworkers, or neighbors could ever use any unbiased mortgage advice or a second opinion, feel free to reach out. Email me at Sean, that's SEAN, at burnyourmortgage.ca, or call or text me at 647-867-3711 for a free mortgage consultation. Also, be sure to head on over to www.burnyourmortgage.ca and sign up for my free weekly newsletter. As a small token of my appreciation, you'll be able to download my ultimate mortgage checklist on choosing the perfect mortgage. I look forward to hearing from you and helping you with all your mortgage needs. Once again, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Burn Your Mortgage podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating. Until next time, happy mortgage burning.